Get ready to get shticky. Shticky Situations is sponsored by Corona Crush. Corona Crush is creating Jewish couples always. Join the Facebook group. Just search Corona Crush and look out for virtual speed dating events happening every other week. They're 100% free and 100% Jewish.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Shticky Situations. I'm your host, Rachel, which obviously you already know because I'm unforgettable. Everyone, right now, whatever platform you're listening on, go give us a 5-star rating, a glowing review, follow, subscribe, whatever if you haven't already, even though you should have. Go like Shticky Situations page on Facebook, follow Shticky Situations Pod on Instagram, follow Shticky Situations Pod on TikTok, and join our loop group. We have a Shticky Situations loop group. The link is in the episode description. Join the loop group. I feel like I keep forgetting to plug that one. So don't forget to join the loop group. If you would like to come be a guest on my podcast, please either fill out, there's an application link in all my Corona Crush posts. Also, it's somewhere on the social media pages, or you can send me a DM on Instagram at Shticky Situations Pod, or send me an email at stickySituationsPod@gmail.com. Same goes for if you would like to date any of my single guests. Please feel free to reach out. I would love to try to set that up for you. No promises that anything will work, but I'm always happy to ask. And yeah, so let's get right into it because we have an extra special episode today. Everyone, please welcome my friend Rachel. Rachel, welcome to the podcast. Hopefully, this doesn't get too confusing, but I feel like I might have had another Rachel on before. I can't remember. But yeah, Rachel, welcome to the
You have to
podcast.
have had another Rachel. Yeah. Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate it. I think our voices are different enough. Hopefully people can know who's who.
Yeah, exactly. And if you have trouble, then listen a second time, slow it down, whatever you need to do. But yeah, okay, Rachel,
Absolutely.
but before we get started, just to give my listeners some context about you, can you please tell me and my listeners your age, location, relationship status, and religious denomination?
I'm 41. I live in Brooklyn. I am single and I consider myself conservative, but more culturally Jewish at this point.
Thank you. And okay, so I guess we should just jump right in. Rachel has a really cool story, so I'm really excited for this episode, and I'm really excited to hear it as well as for you guys to hear it. So, Rachel,
Absolutely.
do you wanna just start by giving us a little bit of a background, and then we can jump into some dating stories?
So I don't know if I'm going to publish this book yet, but let me just go back to kind of how it got started. So we're recording this today on October 8th, and yesterday was October 7th. And obviously it was a very hard day for a lot of us. But October 7th was really a precipice for me in my dating. And at that point, I realized how important it was that I really focus on dating someone that's Jewish. In my 20s, I was like, absolutely, I only want to date Jewish men. In my 30s, I was like, whatever, I'm going to date anybody, whoever it is, I'm just going to try this out. Then October 7th happened. I was still 40 at the time. And in the months coming after that, all of a sudden, Jewish men came out of the woodworks. I was like, how am I matching with so many Jewish men? Like, I don't even understand. And I'm on multiple apps, and I kind of went into this process of like, let me think about dating, like channel marketing. So for those that don't know what channel marketing is, it's basically you put yourself out there in a whole bunch of different channels and see what happens. So I was on JSwipe, I was on Bumble, Hinge, a few other apps that weren't doing as well, like the League and Locks Club. I ended up deleting those because I got like no matches, but I was trying all different things. And then I also joined J Matchmaking, which is a sister to Saw You at Sinai. And then if anybody was introducing me to someone. So I have like these multiple channels going. And all of a sudden, I'm dating all these Jewish men that I never would have happened before. And for myself at 40 years old, one of the reasons why I hadn't been dating so much prior was because I was an executive and very, very busy person, and I was a workaholic. And 3 years ago, I decided to leave my corporate job as a chief customer officer and start my own business. I took some time off, spent a lot of time on myself, and realized I needed to put time into other things outside of work, and relationships was one of them. And one of the things that I really focused on was if you think about like different pillars or buckets in your life. I was like, okay, let me look at all these different buckets. So I was looking at recreation, family, romantic relationships, health, community, finance, career, friends, and spirituality. And I was like, I need to have something in every bucket versus them either being depleted or only one being full. And October 7th really was that precipice. Started building more of my Jewish community, and I started dating a lot more, which I felt was out of the realm of my life. And I didn't put work first. And work is still there as I'm building my business, but everything else kind of has come into alignment because I'm focusing on my whole self versus just work. So in this time, as I start dating, I decided that I was going to put a spreadsheet together. Probably like, Rachel, why are you doing this? Well, I'm doing it because I really wanted to see of like all the men that I dated before, maybe there was patterns that I wasn't seeing. Why did something not work out? What did this look like? And so I just started putting their names down, just a little bit about them, their age, where they're from, like what they do for work. And then it was more about like, how do I feel when I'm talking to them? And what was a story about the dates that we went on? Sometimes it was just conversations. I also was dating men long distance too, because when through the J matchmaking site, I was matched with people all over because I was like, whatever, they're not in New York, they're not in New York. I mean, obviously there's a lot of Jews here, but if they're somewhere else, like I'm okay with that too. And so I ended up, now I'm about 45-ish since the end of November. I started like really dating the end of November. So from the end of November to now, which is, I guess, 11 months, about 45. So I was telling my friends these stories about each guy that I was talking to, like what was going on. And I had multiple friends come to me and they said, Rachel, your stories are amazing. Like this is happening to not just you, but to other people. Like you should write a book. And I was like, I'm not a really good writer. I don't know if I want to write a book. And then finally it just clicked. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try this. I don't know if I'm going to publish it. But what I decided to do was, and I have an outline going, is most of the dates that I've been on is early dating. And there's not a lot of books out there around early dating. It's like, okay, what happens when you're in a relationship or what happens over time, yada, yada. But what happens in early dating? How do you even get someone to swipe right on you if you're using an app? And then what does that conversation look like? And how do you get to that first date? Maybe you don't even get to a date and like why? And it's not just about, okay, a red flag happens. You don't just like shut it off right away, but kind of see how it goes. And then, so what I decided to do is I took all 40-ish people and their stories, and my working title right now is the ABCs of Early Dating, 26 Lessons Learned. So I took all of the dates that I've been on, renamed people from A to Z, male names, and started to do an outline of what the stories I might tell with the lesson that I learned from each story. And these lessons are lessons that everybody can learn. And I think the stories will resonate with people. Anyone that is maybe really immersed in their work, they see themselves as a workaholic like myself. They might have been an executive. I'm also overweight, and that has been like plus and minus on multiple sides of like what that looks like. And then also for people that want to date within their own culture, because one of the things that I found clearly across everyone was that values were aligned so quickly that it made it easier to have conversations because we agreed on a lot of the same things and we came from the same or similar backgrounds, which made it so much easier. When I was dating men that weren't Jewish, you have to explain yourself. And I didn't have to explain myself. It was just known. And it made it so much easier. So that's kind of where I'm at. And I'm excited, and hopefully we'll see if it comes out as a book, but at the bare minimum, I'm excited to write this story for myself and even just share it with friends if it doesn't end up if I decide not to publish it, but it's something that I can share and put together and say, this is the experience that I went through, and feel better about getting it out there.
And that sounds amazing. And don't worry, Shticky Situation Nation. If Rachel does publish it, We will promote it. You guys will know about it. Don't worry. But that's amazing. I was gonna say I don't know if I've ever gone on been out with 45 guys total, but that's false. I have my own spreadsheet, but it's not as detailed as what you're talking about, and I'm kind of annoyed at myself that it's not as detailed. I should have I mean I've been dating for like 10-ish years. Like I wish my spreadsheet was more detailed. But it's kind of
Well, you can always
amazing to
add to it.
see. Yeah, I definitely could. I do have a pretty good memory when it comes to this kind of stuff. I don't remember everyone, but I do remember a fair amount. Plus I've been doing the podcast for like 2 years, so that's 2 years of my dating life chronicled. But yeah,
Cool.
I don't know. It's amazing that you said 45 guys in 11 months, which I don't know. I think I've gone out with 3 guys in the last 11 months. But
Well, I
but
haven't
yeah,
gone out with all of them in person per se.
yeah.
Because again, some of them were virtual. So they were their FaceTimes or phone calls or texting to the point where they ghosted me, or, I still counted all of those
Okay.
as well.
Okay. So that's a little bit more in line with like I was like, how do you have time? Like that's so time consuming.
It is time consuming, but I also try to, well, when I start talking to someone, like I've tried to have at least 1 to 2 nights a week where I'm like, okay, this could be for a date versus planning my whole week out. So I try to have like downtime in my week so that I can allow for that. But like some weeks are busy, I just can't. It just is what it is.
Yeah, that's really smart because I find that I stack up my weeks and then like a guy will like come into the guys always come into the picture, not during the weeks that I have nothing going on and I sit at home and watch TV after work, but it's always the weeks that I like stack recordings and events with friends and all these other things. So, but that's smart. But yeah, so Rachel, would you want to share some of the stories or even other stories that aren't in your book? Um, and just yeah, so we can get an idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I've kind of had things all over the board happen. I'll tell you about the most recent guy that I'm talking to at the moment. See what happens. We matched before Rosh Hashanah. I was like, okay, I'm not going to message him now because it's Rosh Hashanah for the next couple of days. So I'll message him like after the holiday ends.
Do you always
So,
message first?
so it was
Or do
on
you wait for the
Hinge. So
guy?
it was on Hinge and he like sent me that he liked my profile and he didn't say
Okay.
anything. So one of the things that I've kind of leaned into in the last year is to message first, because I was so much more passive in the past and it got me nowhere. And I was just waiting, and everybody's always waiting. And I didn't talk about what I do for a living, but I'll just kind of add that in. So what I do now is I'm a networking coach. So I help people get comfortable to be able to be in networking situations. And I like to take the icky out of networking and help people make sticky relationships. Well, it's very similar in dating, and especially in early dating, because you're really focusing on the conversation. Do we align? Do we want to talk to each other? Do we want to go see each other more than, one date? Attraction is obviously important, but for me, if I can't have a conversation with someone or they can't carry a conversation with me, I'm not like, that's an automatic no. Like I had a matchmaker reach out. Oh, the other thing that I have done is I've filled out my profile for a bunch of different matchmakers too. So like if they have a candidate that is looking for someone, then at least I'm in their database. And a matchmaker reached out to me and she thought I'd be a good match for the person. Then we started talking for a few minutes and she told me about the person and I was like, oh, I don't really know. I don't think this is a good match. And then she also agreed because my personality and his personality was like completely opposite. So I don't want to have to pull out a conversation with someone. Like if you can't carry a conversation with me, then probably not the right person and time to move on. And that's okay. But back to this guy. So he didn't message me. He just like liked on Hinge. So I sent him a message and all I said was Shana Tova, because he was Jewish as well. And then neither of us are religious. I sent him a message on Saturday morning and he messaged back right away. We ended up talking for like an hour and 15 minutes on the phone that day. Like we exchanged numbers and
Yeah.
he wanted to go out that night. Well, I had no plans on going out on Saturday night. Like it was just a holiday. I just wanted to relax and stay in on Saturday. And I was like, we could go on Sunday. I didn't have any plans on Sunday in the evening. And he lives in Queens. I live in Brooklyn. And he messaged me in the morning. We talked about like going to Manhattan or he would come to Brooklyn. My train line wasn't running, so I'd have to take a bus to another train and just be like pain to get into Manhattan. So I was like, okay, I'd really prefer to be in Brooklyn. Just let me know where and when works for you. About 4 o'clock, still hadn't heard from him. And so I sent him a message, hey, like, what are the plans for tonight? And he was like, oh, well, I hate to do this. Like something came up. I can't meet with you. How can I make it up to you? And I was like, okay, no worries. And then he's like, how are you? That was like it. I didn't hear from him all day yesterday. And so I just sent him another message, just be like, hey, like, let me know if you want to reschedule. If not, no worries. Didn't hear he responded back to me, like, how's your day going or something? But like, we didn't talk more than that yesterday. Then this morning he sends me a text, wishing me good morning and talking about our mornings for a few minutes. And then he said, hey, can we hang out again? It's now late at night. I've been busy all day. Like I literally have not stopped. Like we even had to push this back because my day was just so hectic. So I'll probably message him at the end of today, but I'm also just not going to stop my day to text somebody. Like I got to live
Yeah.
my life too. So we'll see what happens. Kind of like 1.5 strikes at this point, but we'll not gonna like say absolutely no. We'll just keep seeing where this goes. And if he can't commit to a time or day, then I'm not going on a date with him.
Yeah. Yeah, you have much more patience than I do. Like, I don't know, if he stops, I just take it for I don't know. If a guy wants to cancel, but I guess that is kind of what you're saying. Like sometimes things don't happen unless you make it happen. Like you sending the message first. You like following up and like I'll do that to an extent, but at a certain point I'm just like this isn't worth it. Like I don't want to chase some boy who I don't know. But I hope it works out for
I don't
either.
really feel like it. Yeah,
Like
I don't really feel like it's
in this
chasing.
situation.
Yeah, I don't really feel like it's chasing. For me, it's more like, let me put an end to this because the feeling of being ghosted is so much worse. And when I reach back out and I just ask, hey, are you interested? Like, where do we take this from here? Or like, do you want to reschedule? And I don't hear anything. Okay, that's the end. Like, I'm not expecting anything else. But if they message back, let's figure something out. I don't want to just end it because people have so much going on in their life. There's another guy that this was like in January or February, I can't remember. He wanted to meet for coffee in the middle of the day. We're both entrepreneurs, so we can meet in the middle of the day, and I'm totally fine with that. And it was a coffee shop on the Upper East Side. I don't normally go to the Upper East Side, but it was like he came from Queens and I was going to be in Manhattan. So I said, okay, no problem. I'll meet you there. I had a bunch of things to do in the city that day and had a dinner that night as well. And so, middle of the day, it was like an hour before we are supposed to meet. He sends me a text and tells me that his tire blew on his way driving into the city. Sorry, he has to cancel. Never heard from the guy ever again. Like, if you cancel the
Wow.
date, like it's on you to reschedule. Like, I'm not going
Yeah.
to make that happen. Like, to me, that's a cancellation, like at that point. And if you really wanted to see me, then you'd reach out and say, I'm so sorry. Like, this was unexpected. Love to like plan another time. Never heard from him again. So, of course, I'm not reaching out to him.
Yeah, no, I don't know. My thing is, it's okay. Like, I understand that life is hectic, and I've had to cancel things last minute. I've had to push things off. Like, I don't, my life gets busy too, and it's totally understandable. But my thing is, if you're gonna disappoint someone, like canceling a date last minute, whatever, you have to make up for it. You need an apology and you need like a new plan. And it's like you need to text at that time. I've had people cancel on me last minute, and like this one guy, I talked about him a lot last year. We didn't even go out because he canceled on me last minute, and then he just like didn't even have the common decency enough to apologize for it. And I gave him a really hard time about it because he's a friend of a friend. And I'm like, this was a friend setup. Like, I'm going to give you a hard time about this. Like, you need to apologize. You need to have a good reason or make up a good reason. And like having a tire blow, like, that's a perfectly fine reason for not being able to make it. Like, especially if you were on a time restriction, like, he could have just been like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. My tire blew on the way here. I need to go get the tire changed. I don't think I'm going to make it into the city like in this time frame. Can we go out tomorrow or the next day?" Like a different plan. So, I just like, don't know why I find it that these guys like have a hard time communicating that. Some guys are really good about it. And I know when personally when I've had to cancel something, whether it be a romantic thing, like a phone call, a date, whatever, or even podcast recording, podcast phone calls. Like, I always make sure to apologize. I always make sure to ask for their next availability. Like, I had to do that a couple weeks ago. Like, I had a podcast recording scheduled, and then something changed at work and my schedule changed, where I was gonna originally be working from home that day. So I was gonna be able to like fit a weird time that person needed to record, but then my schedule changed and I was gonna have to be in the office, and like all of it's understandable. You just need to apologize and make a new plan. And it's not that hard to communicate. But I don't know. I kind of go back and forth about the being ghosted thing because sometimes I get really annoyed and I'll just like, and I have a friend and he's like, close the loop, close the loop. Like, don't let yourself get ghosted, close the loop. And, but sometimes it's just like, I don't know if it's worth it. And I don't know. I think that's more of a recent thing because the old me would have like just chewed the guy out, like, can't believe you're ghosting me, all of this, and like chewed them out. But like, I had a recent scenario. It was actually really weird where like a guy from my past resurfaced, and he was like he resurfaced. So and he was like trying to get my attention, I think, for a couple months. I don't even know. It was a very weird scenario. So finally I texted him because technically I was the one who ended it. And I texted him, I was like, "Hey, um, like I just said something really friendly and very casual." And I was like, "Would you want to catch up?" And he's like, "Sure." And I was like, "Okay, like, do either of these days work for you?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm not sure my schedule." And that was 2 weeks ago. So TBD. And my one friend's like, "Close the loop, close the loop, close the loop. Don't get ghosted." And I'm like, is it even worth it? I don't think it's worth it to like text him and be like, whatever. Clearly, it was a weird scenario because I texted him, he said he was interested, and then immediately proceeded to ghost me. So I'm like, I just, I don't have the energy to figure this out. But
Well, he very well could be busy. I mean, when I close the loop, I'm very kind about it. Like I'm never chew anybody out. I just am like, sounds like this isn't going to work for you. I wish you the best. I may give them like the situation that you're in. I may give them one more chance. Like, I know your schedule is busy. Let me know if next week works for you. And then if he doesn't respond, then I would probably send a anti-ghosting message, if you want to call it that, of like, let's just close the loop on this.
yeah,
And the closing the loop is for you. It's not for them. It's like, okay, do it only if it's going to make you feel better. If it's not going to make you feel better, then it doesn't matter. For me, I
mhm.
found that when I close things off, or if I get a closure from somebody else, like, I'm happy to get that text versus living in limbo of like, what's going to happen next? Like, what is going on? Like, I don't like living in that state.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know. I think even me sending the text and the ball being in his court, just kind of made me feel better because I'm like, this is no longer on me. But also, it's not like I'm sitting around waiting for him to text me. This is honestly like I texted him in a time that was like fine for me, but now we're entering like this next month is busy for me anyways. I have other people like I'm not like waiting by my phone for him to text me to meet up. Like I have other stuff going on. I have other guys potentially. Like I there's I think I got all the closure I needed just by sending the initial text. So I don't know. We'll see. If he reaches back out, then maybe I'll let you guys know. But we'll
And
see. It
also,
was just
it's
a weird
totally fine to
situation.
have people but it's also totally fine to have people in waiting, if you want to call it that. Like everybody, you don't have to close the loop on everyone. Like if he
Hmm.
happens to come back and you're still single and you want to go out with him, like go out with him. And that's another thing.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't, there's times where like timing doesn't work, or there's a reason why that's not a bad reason that like the two of you, whoever you're dating at the time, like it just doesn't match in that moment. Like a lot of people are like, oh, is this timing a thing? I truly believe that it can be. Like there are times in people's life where they just don't match, but they could, not talk to each other for a period of time and then come back together. And that's the time that they're supposed to be dating. So I think that's totally okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's kind of like the thing. It's like I don't really care enough, but if he comes back and I'm available, then who knows? But also I'm not like expecting him to come back or waiting for him to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. You
So
can always find there may be somebody else coming. And it sounds like you've kind of closed a loop on your own, like knowing what that.
yeah, in my brain, the loop is
Yeah,
closed for now.
exactly.
We'll
So
see.
that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to share another story?
Yeah. This one is a little bit more intense, but I was also catfished off of J Swipe, and that lasted for about 6 weeks. And that
Wow.
was kind of the hardest thing because I feel that I am very alert, and I was. But one of the things that I do when I start talking to somebody is I tell my friends what's going on because I want them, like when you're dating someone, you're like in your own reality, right? Like you may be seeing things with glassy eyes and you just want things to happen because you want things to happen, but they may not be true or accurate. And so my friends are like giving me warnings. Hey, just pay attention, pay attention. It's kind of a crazy story. He told me that he originally was from Greece. There's obviously not many Jews in Greece. He ended up immigrating to Calgary, Canada, also very random. Now lives in San Diego. We matched when he was in New York, but then ended up flying. He was here for work, ended up flying back to San Diego. I talked to many other guys that were long distance, so it wasn't a big deal. If I talk to someone on long distance, like I make sure that I talk to them on a video call, not just on the phone, because I want to make sure that they're real. Well, we did, and this person looked like the person in the picture. Long story short, he supposedly worked for the government, for the Department of Defense, and IT. He got sent to Indonesia. He was in Indonesia. The day before he left, supposedly his sister was in Guatemala and fell off of a balcony and was in critical condition. All of it seemed to be a believable story. And then when he was in Indonesia, he asked me for money. I didn't send him any money. I said, I'll help you send up a GoFundMe for your sister, which I did. I gave him $36 towards the GoFundMe, and nobody else donated. And supposedly, all of his, and this happens when you work for the government, especially when you get sent away, just so in case you get compromised, they lock all of your finances because they don't want you to have access to things so that if for any reason you get kidnapped or something, that you wouldn't be giving away money. So he said he had no money. And I was like, I'll help you set up the GoFundMe, whatever. I'm not giving you any money. Then his sister died, supposedly, and he needed to leave Indonesia. So his supervisor told him he could leave, but he wasn't going to be able to pay for him to get off the island. So like, this is a bunch of bullshit. Like, you are working for the US government. Like, how is the US government going to leave you stranded in Indonesia? Like, that's not happening. And he kept asking me for money. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, even if I send you money, where would you get the money? Like, there's no way that you'd even be able to get the money to like go somewhere. Like, it makes zero sense. And I'm a very like a good thinker in that way. And then he ended up ghosting me. And I was like, this is crazy. But I was like emotionally involved with this person. And then I generally meditate before I go to bed. And I get a lot of for myself personally, like as I'm going to bed, either in my dreams or when I'm waking up, that's when a lot of things come to me of like decisions that I'm making or things that happen. And I was meditating as I was going to sleep, just like a couple weeks after I hadn't heard from him. And something came to me and said, Rachel, put his picture through a free photo scanner. So I did that. This is now like 1 o'clock in the morning. I went down this rabbit hole, but as soon as I put his picture on, it automatically said catfish, catfish, catfish. So I'm like, oh my God, is this person a catfish? Like, what is going on? Come to find out, he was imitating a guy that had actually passed away in 2021. Probably isn't the only person that's done it. It took me to a Facebook group catfish site called Catch the Catfish. And there's all this information on this person, or the picture of the person, that was using all these different names, but the name that this person gave me was not on the list. So I did a post and I said, this is the name that was given to me. This is the story that happened. I'm really shocked because I did a video call with this person. The photo was exactly the person on the video call exactly matched them. And I had done a couple of video calls with this person. And the admin of that Catch the Catfish Facebook group responded to me right away and said, today, the tech is so good that all you need is a photo of someone and it can transpose over them and you don't even know that it's transposed and
Wow.
it looks real. And they said, the next time you talk to them, make sure you record the video. And I said, well, I'm never talking to this person again. And I knew, and I'm pretty sure that he had have known that I knew what was going on. So then I reported him on JSwipe. I reported it to GoFundMe. GoFundMe actually gave me my money back. I reported it, the Instagram that he had, his LinkedIn, his Facebook, everywhere that I could find the name and the person, I reported it everywhere. He came back up on JSwipe a second time. I reported it to JSwipe again. I don't know what they do with them. And the fact that it was like even able to come through a second time is crazy because he was using the exact same name.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
crazy. It's good that you had the intuition to know, like, not to really give him money. But I mean, I don't know. If anyone asked me for money, I definitely wouldn't. At least I like to think I wouldn't. I had on J Swipe, not as crazy of a story, and I don't even know if he was a catfish, but I matched with this guy and he was a little interesting, like messaging, but we ended up like we exchanged phone numbers and I found it weird because he gave me a Google Voice number and I
Mhm.
find that sketchy. And it was on WhatsApp. So he gave me a Google Voice number. I called him out for it right away because obviously the first thing I do when someone gives me their number is Google their area code because
Yeah.
I want to know. Like I know the New York, New Jersey area codes. So I was like, and also I just like to know. It's like, oh, you're from this place? Like, it's like I'm not from New York, so I have a different area code. So I would expect people to see my area code and also Google it. But yeah, so I Googled it. It said it was like in the middle of nowhere, California. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is a Google Voice number. I don't know if it had like a name, like his name, like the same name on JSwipe on WhatsApp, or if it was like even
Yeah.
similar. I don't even remember. It was something weird with that. And then we were talking and I like kept asking about it and he's like, "No, it's not a Google Voice. It was like some weird California area code." And I'm like, "Oh, I thought you were from New York." He's like, "Oh, well, I grew up in California." I'm like, "I don't believe you." Yeah, and he was like a little interesting. He didn't ask me for money or anything, but what really freaked me out was the Google Voice number. I was like, "Okay, some people are just weird and maybe they want to protect their identity and whatever." I get it, maybe not really, but like a little bit. I wanted to do a video call with him and he kept this was even before he was sketchy about the video call. Basically, I keep Shabbat, and he also said that he kept Shabbat. And one Saturday, like I didn't talk to him for that long, maybe a week. And Saturday night, I look at my phone after Shabbat ends, and I see that he had texted me at like 11 p.m. on Friday night. And there is nowhere he could have been in the world where it wouldn't have been Shabbat at 11 p.m. in New York City on like Friday night. Like, unless he flew halfway around the world. Like, it just like wasn't possible. So I confronted him about it, which I didn't like again, no it he had just told me that he kept Shabbat. So I was like, "Oh, I thought you said you kept Shabbat." And even if he would have said like, "Oh, yeah, I mostly keep it. Sometimes I go on my phone." Like that would have been fine. But no. He said, "Oh, there must have been a delay in when the message sent." And I'm like, "Okay, no, this is sketchy. This is like WhatsApp does not have that much of a delay." And it was also 11 p.m. on a Friday night. Like, if anything, it would delay it by
Yeah, that
like
was definitely
a few minutes, but I'm like, nope, this is sketchy. And then I tried to have a video call with him, and I think like he couldn't make the time and tried to reschedule, and I'm like, nope. But I think he would I think he just ended up ghosting me. Or no, I yelled at him. I was like, "You're fake, you're a catfish." And then he ghosted me. I've seen him come up again on JSub. I tried running his picture through like reverse Google image search, but it didn't really work.
mhm. Use a
But
free face scanner. If you look up a free face scanner, that's like the better way to do it versus
okay.
reverse Google image search. I haven't had much luck with that.
When I find him again
So
on
since
JSwipe,
that
which
cat,
I probably will, I'm gonna do that.
then do it. Yeah. One of the things since that catfish, I've only because that was in the summer, that was in July into August. And then I gave myself like a good 4, 5 weeks off. And then on Tu B'Av, when that came up and Corona Crush was doing the speed dating on that day, I said, okay, I'm going to do this. I've never done it before. And I ended up matching with a guy in Colorado. And so I'm talking to him for 2 weeks. And he ended up ending it. He didn't want to be in something long distance. I don't think I don't think the timing was right. Like it just didn't, it wasn't necessarily a match, but I was just excited to meet a real human being that I went down like this whole rabbit hole of like, who is this person? What do they do? Like, and I'm not that type of person. Like normally when I date someone, like I will generally look up their phone number. Similarly, like just like, is this a real number? Is this connected to the person? But I was like going on down this whole rabbit hole to be like, how real is this person? Because I was just so nervous, even though I saw him like virtually on the Corona Crush speed dating. I was like, okay, he has to be real. Like, I doubt that he's faking himself on camera at this point, but like, you never know with anybody that I learned now. And we had
It's
done a
so
couple video
scary.
calls since. And so I was like, okay, he's a real person. But I also think the time difference wasn't something that he liked. Even though like when he got up was around the same time that I got up because he got up early in the morning. I tend to get up a little bit later in my morning, which is around the same time as his morning. So like our days were still kind of aligned, but I think he was like more in his head about it. But I was like, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's just the fact that I was able to then put myself back out there after that catfish dilemma because it really like rocked
Yeah,
me.
that like would shake. That's enough to shake
Yeah.
a person.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Did like have you come across him again at all on any other dating apps like the
Just on,
catfish?
no, just on J Swipe. I haven't seen him anywhere else because the other sites that I'm generally on are Bumble and Hinge, and I haven't seen him on either of those, which is interesting that he's going after Jewish women specifically.
Yeah, no, that is weird. Ugh, this all
Yeah,
it's all I've gotten like random WhatsApp messages also from these guys, and I'm like, I already know this is fake. Like this one
yeah.
guy, this was a few years ago, he texted me on WhatsApp. I don't know how he got my number, but he sent me a WhatsApp and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm 50 and I'm just looking for companionship." And I'm like, "I'm 26." Like this was a few years ago. And I'm like, "No."
Yeah,
But I'm like also then I
yeah.
reverse Google image searched and it was not, it was a catfish. And I'm like, "This is weird." But sometimes it's fun to mess with them a little bit when it's like so obvious.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if you have
Not to get
time
messed
for
with.
that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But okay, before we hear more stories and more discussion, let's take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Shticky Situations is sponsored by Corona Crush. Are you tired of swiping on dating apps? Tired of guessing whether the cute guy or girl you keep seeing around is Jewish and or single? Then you need to run, not walk, to join Corona Crush. Corona Crush is a Jewish organization working to create Jewish couples always. Corona Crush has over 30 confirmed engagements, over 22,000 members from all over the world, and has set up over 50,000 speed dates. Join the Corona Crush Facebook group and post yourself or have a friend post you and see who reaches out. Fill out the survey to sign up for virtual speed dating events happening every other week. Corona Crush is 100% free and 100% Jewish. Worst case, you end up with some stories of your own. Best case, you find the love of your life. Try it out today. Here on Shticky Situations, we tend to focus on bad dating stories, but sometimes dates do go well and lead to proposals and weddings. Who would have thought? And what do all of those require, you might be asking? Well, the answer is flowers. Who doesn't want flowers from someone they've been seeing? Don't forget, flower petals and bouquets needed for proposals. And that's even before all the flowers that go into weddings. Sticky Situations is sponsored by Primrose Flower Shop. In my opinion, Primrose is the coolest flower shop around and has the best customer service to fulfill all of your floral needs. Primrose offers a range of services from your basic bouquets to subscription services where you can get flowers delivered once a week. They deliver all over the tri state area, including Manhattan. Primrose does weddings, bar and bat mitzvahs, and other simchas. I've personally been to a wedding where Primrose did the flowers, and the work they did was beyond gorgeous. Primrose additionally offers in store proposals, including a romantic setup with candles and music. Primrose is located at 2922 Avenue M in Brooklyn, and the phone number is 929 376 9815. You can also follow Primrose on Instagram at PrimroseNY. So, if you can't get someone out of your head, buy them some flowers from Primrose. They'll either love it or they'll find you really creepy. But regardless, the flowers will be out of this world.
Okay, we're back, everybody. Okay, Rachel, do you want to tell another story?
Yeah, it's one from a few years ago, actually. This one was a crazy date that I went on. So I met this guy. He lived in New Jersey. He said he'd come all the way to Brooklyn. And I often would go, if someone said, okay, what restaurant do you want to go to? I pick restaurants that I like. And I also, which I didn't mention, I worked in the hospitality industry for over 20 years. So I also was a general manager of 3 very well-known restaurants in New York City. Restaurants are very important to me. So, and where people like to dine, the type of restaurant, the places. I learn a lot from a person based upon the restaurants that they like. And so he was like, yeah, absolutely. We can go here. We go. I know the owner specifically. One of my clients who was a restaurant owner was there as well. We get seated at, we sat at the bar, I think is where I end up getting the seating, which is nice when you go on a date to sit side by side instead of across from each other. And that way, like the conversation isn't so awkward. You don't have to like constantly be looking into someone's eyes. You can just have like good conversation. And I generally like to order family style. So I'll ask people, if they have any food allergies or aversions. I keep kosher-ish. So I don't eat pork or shellfish. I don't eat meat and dairy together. And the person that I'm dating doesn't have to be that, or if they're more like, for me, they have to, the bare minimum, they have to eat dairy out. I'm fine keeping kosher at home. I keep kosher-ish at home. Like I have 2 sets of dishes, but I do eat non-kosher meat. But if somebody was like, oh, they want to have kosher meat at home, I'm not opposed to that at all. I'm like keeping kosher at home, but they have to enjoy food. Like that's important to me because I actually went to culinary school. So I cooked for the first part of my career before I was in operation. So good meals are important. Anyway, so we order food, we order family style. So things are coming out as they're ready. Every bite this guy took after he was going, or before he went in for his next bite, he took his cloth napkin and his fork, and he wiped his fork on his cloth napkin, put the napkin back on his lap, and proceeded to continue to eat. And he did that for every bite through the entire meal. I was offended. Like, I couldn't even believe that he was doing this. And like the conversation was fine. And he lived in New Jersey. We ended up, I don't know how we paid for the meal. I don't know if he paid for it or we split. I don't mind splitting, but like if you're taking me on a date, like I prefer that you pay, but like I'm okay splitting. I also suggested the restaurant. And when we finished, he didn't wait for for my Uber to come. He just bucketed out of there. I'm like, okay, that's crazy. And I had a similar date, kind of. I went to another restaurant that I really like. It's a barbecue restaurant in Brooklyn. You have to wait in line for a long time. And I was like, oh, this is actually kind of a perfect thing because you're waiting in line before you get your food. So you can like have conversation, then you eat your meal, you can go. Well, we got our food, we sat down to eat. He literally scarfed the meal. And like, we're sharing this. Like, he scarfed it. I was fine. Like, I had plenty to eat. It wasn't an issue, but I was just like really taken back by that. Barely talked because he was scarfing down the food. We finished the meal. He's like, okay, bye. Literally ran out of the restaurant and ran down the street. And I was like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. And I'm just going to add on to this because all three of these are like meal related dates. And I had another date, and I forgot to mention I had been on Talkify. At the end of 2020, I had like been working like crazy during that year, being in hospitality, and the company that I was working at, we were a tech company and we were actually really busy. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do Talkify, get a matchmaker, see what happens. I did Talkify for like a year, went on 10 different dates. They're all bad. We can talk about some of those as well. I'm in a community group for executive women, and somebody had posted in that community channel, in one of the channels about, hey, has anyone ever done Talkify? What do you think? Is it worth it? I was like, absolutely not. It's not worth it at all. I had a horrible experience. Little did I know, the CEO of Talkify was also in the group. She messaged me and she was like, hey, I apologize, you had a bad experience. Are you open to meet up for coffee? I was like, absolutely. I tell her about all my experiences. And she's like, I want to gift you 3 VIP dates. I said, absolutely. I'm happy to do that. I really appreciate it. And one out of the 3 was fantastic, but then he ghosted. But we can talk about that separately. But the third one that I went on, because we're still kind of like it was 2022. So it was 2 years ago, like this fall. And so the third one was actually in February of 2023. And my matchmaker was like, oh, I think you should probably meet him in person instead of doing it virtually, because all the other ones had been virtual because it was still COVID-ish. And I was like, okay, yeah, no problem. I was like, she's like, well, give me some restaurants. I'll make the reservation. I was like, well, does he have any food allergies or aversions? Because I always ask that question. And she's like, oh, it doesn't matter. Just pick a spot. So we went to this Peruvian restaurant in Williamsburg. Well, he lived in Washington Heights. So Washington Heights to Williamsburg is like
That's far.
stupid far.
Yeah.
Stupid far. Like, it's crazy. Like, of all the places to choose to go to. And I was like, okay, fine. He was running late. And one of my biggest pet peeves is like, I do not want to date someone that's a schlump. Like, you have to be put together. Like, that is like number 1.5. My number 1 is you have to have emotional intelligence and carry a conversation. But like, being a schlump is like, I can't, like, that is
I
just
completely
not
agree.
okay. And his shirt is like half untucked. I was like, and he was wearing a white button down. I'm like, men out there, like, please don't wear white button downs to a date. Like, just stop doing it. Like, stop. Like, it's not something that you wear, period. So we sit down to
Unless
eat.
you're
Huh?
unless you're yeshivish.
Yes. But dress yourself up a little bit. Just like be put together. Wear a belt. Like, be put together, you know? Like, shouldn't be half untucked. Anyway, we sit down. He wasn't Jewish. We order our food. find out he's allergic to fish. We're at a Peruvian restaurant, which is
Ooh.
primarily ceviche, which is 90% fish on the menu. And I specifically asked the matchmaker before we went out, does he have any allergies or aversions? I wouldn't even have put that restaurant on the menu. I mean, on the list. And she's like, oh, it doesn't matter, blah, blah. I was like, what matters? Especially like, because I know, because I have dietary restrictions, I'm very specific about where I dine. Like if a place is 90% shellfish, I'm not dining there. Like I'm not going to go because there's nothing for me to eat. Like if a friend's like, oh, let's go to crab boil, I'm not going to a crab boil. Like I can't eat anything at a crab boil. Like I'm just going to sit there and watch you eat a meal. Like that's not fun for me. Anyway, so he ends up ordering quinoa with bacon and he eats it with a fork. So if you ever had quinoa, you don't eat quinoa with a fork because it just falls through the fork. One bite at a time, he eats this quinoa. I got ceviche because that's what I wanted. And I finished my ceviche. We each got a drink. Conversation was like, not that great. He asked the server for the check. Not only did he want to split it, but he wanted to itemize the check. So he wanted his
Oh my
quinoa, his
gosh.
drink on his card, and my ceviche and my drink on my card. That is just too much. If you're going to take someone out on a date, it's not that big of a deal if you split. Like I'm totally fine with splitting, but
I'm not.
do not itemize it. Just do not itemize it. It is not okay.
If a
And
guy tried to get me to pay on a date or split on a date, I would walk out. Like, I'm not paying.
I mean, I've
Unless we're
had
in a
some really
like not on a
great,
first date. That
I
would
mean, it
give me
also
the
depends where you're
immediate
going, right?
ick. I would
Yeah,
never give
I
them a
don't
second
like it.
date.
Like I generally don't like it, but it doesn't bother me that much because I'm also an independent person. And so like I'm not like against it, but I would really prefer to be taken out for a date. But I went on another date with a guy earlier this year and we were talking about sushi. Like I love sushi. And he's like, well, let me take you out for sushi. Pick an omakase place. And so I picked one that I really like. It's a restaurant in Williamsburg. It's all you can drink sake and they have like amazing sushi. And I've been there multiple times. It's like a super fun environment. And I was like, just so you know, like this is what the cost is. It's a cash only place too. And I just want to check with you, like you're okay with this amount. He's like, oh no, I'm paying. Like, don't worry about it. I always bring cash with me anyway, just in case or like whatever. So he took out cash. He didn't have enough to cover the entire tip, which like I was totally okay with. So I just like put in 20 extra bucks to like cover the tip. Not that big of a deal. But I really appreciated that he cared enough to like find what I like to eat, made sure that it was a place that like I wanted to go to. And we had a really great time. And technically he covered the whole bill and it was expensive. I mean, for the two of us with tip, it was, even though it's not that expensive, it's still expensive with tip. Like it was close to $300 for the two of us just for
Oh, wow.
sushi. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, omakase is expensive usually.
Yeah.
I mean, I only really
So if
know
you're
kosher
$20 short,
omakase,
like it's
but
not the end of the world.
yeah.
What did you say?
No, I only really know kosher omakase, but I'm sure non-kosher is not that much cheaper.
I mean, it's about the same. I mean, I've gone to kosher omakase places too. There's a really good place in like Midwood area that has a really good kosher omakase that I've been to that I really liked. But it ends up being the same because they're using the same fish. Like fish is no
Yeah.
different, whether it's kosher, like it's still the same fish. So
Yeah. Yeah. But just really quick, going back to what you said, I consider myself very independent. I have a good job. I'm doing fine by myself for myself. But if I'm putting on a cute outfit and makeup and doing my hair, I'm not paying for the date. Like down the line,
yeah.
maybe, but like definitely I'm not splitting it. Especially not definitely not the first three dates. Like that's a no. Also, like if a guy asks me to split it, it's immediately no to a second date. Like, because that's an ick for
Yeah,
me.
I don't know if I've ever gone on a second date with someone that asked me to split the check, to be honest with you. Like
It just
I
shows
think
me
if a
that
guy, I
it
think if
just
a
shows
guy
me he
asks to
wants the
split a check,
princess treatment and I get the
yeah,
princess treatment. You don't get the princess treatment. Like, you're the man, man up. If I
yeah.
wanted to date a woman, I would go lesbian. And trust me, I wish I could.
I feel
So,
like if they're asking for to split the check, then it's just an automatic no anyway. Um, yeah, it's just if especially if you're asking someone on a date, like you're asking them on a date, like pay for the date. Like why would you not pay for it?
yeah. Also, if you don't want to put out the money for a date, then you shouldn't be dating. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know. I think, like, yeah, maybe gender roles, whatever. It's not, quote unquote, not fair that a guy always has to pay, but like, women have to do other stuff. So, like, suck it up. Pay for the date.
totally. Because you
And
might be getting your
yeah.
nails done, you're doing your hair, you're spending so much more time. Like you might even get
Oh,
a new
yeah.
outfit. Like there's so much
My
more cost
manicure,
leading
my
up to it.
my manicure, my makeup, and my hair tools cost way more than the date. Probably cost way more than any day than all the dates we're gonna go on combined. So like,
Yeah.
and I'm giving you
Plus your
my
time to
time.
get ready too, right?
Yeah, boys can just like take a shower and put on a clean outfit. I have to like do my
I look like
hair,
a
do
slum.
my makeup, try on like 10 different outfits. Like, yeah, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of effort. So no, I will not be paying for any type of date. And if a guy asks me to, I will walk away.
That's smart.
Yeah, luckily I haven't been there yet, but we'll see if the day comes. If the day comes. I'm
Yeah.
a big
I mean,
talker,
one of the
but
things that through this process that I realized where I am today is that I don't really want a first date to be such a big thing. Like, one of the things that I just want to try to do on a first date is like, let's go get ice cream and go for a walk. Like, let's just make it simple. Like, why do we have to make it be something that seems to be so intense? Like, even to get a drink can sometimes be too much. Or to go to dinner, like have it be activity. Like when someone does an activity-based date, that's generally my favorite date. Like a guy that I dated for a while. This was years ago when I first moved to New York. So I was 30 or 31 at the time. And it was in the winter time and we went ice skating at Bryant Park. And I'm not like a good ice skater at all. I haven't ice skated in years at that point, but it was just like a fun thing to do. And that date led into going to have a drink at a hotel across the street. And then we actually ended up dating for a while because had like a shared experience versus, oh, let's just like have a meal and talk, which again, I like doing that because I'm big into restaurants and stuff. But when you have something that you can do that you're not just like caught up in conversation, it can be helpful to have more organic conversation as well.
yeah, I agree. Although if a guy took me ice skating on a date, I wouldn't go.
Well, funny story, one of my friends actually had a date ice skating at Prospect Park. This was like years after I'd like dated this guy. She ended up, I think it was a first date too, if I remember correctly. She ended up breaking her leg on the
Oh my
ice.
God.
They had to call an ambulance. They had to go to the hospital. She was in
Did
a
she marry
cast. She ended up
him?
having to have surgery. But she did end up dating this guy for a while because he was so upset about like what happened on the date, and he would like bring her chicken soup and like just make sure that she was okay. And then they ended up dating for a while and like past her recovery. But it was just like one of those things. So yeah, guys, if you're listening, ice skating is probably not the best thing to do, but maybe mini golf or like
Or
something where you're not
ask.
going to get totally hurt.
Ask. Because maybe like a
Yeah.
girl loves ice skating. I don't know. One of my exes loved ice skating and he kept threatening to take me ice skating. And I'm like, I don't want to go ice skating. We broke up before we actually went ice skating. Because like he almost had me convinced on letting him take me ice skating. But I'm like, I don't want to. I don't know. I don't want to do anything that's going to be semi-dangerous. But activities are good as long as you make sure that the other person is down for it.
Totally.
But yeah, I like a chill first date. Like I'd rather just talk and get to know you, see if I hate you before I like have to spend a significant amount of time with you.
I also like a phone call before a date too. Like
Oh
it's
yes, that's a
okay to like
must.
jump on the phone and have a conversation. You know, even if it's 20 minutes, like that's fine. If it's FaceTime, even better. Just get to like someone's vibe, because texting, you don't really know their vibe so
Yeah,
much.
I
Um,
agree. I always do a phone or video call before I meet someone. It's just like something that I instituted during COVID that has carried through.
yeah.
I got to make sure I really don't hate you on the phone, like before I agree to meet in person. Meeting in person is a lot of effort. So,
It is. And I don't mind meeting in person like before a phone call. Like if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. For me, it's just another person to connect with. And part of the reason why I'm like looking into here writing this book is because I keep learning all these different lessons. Like if I don't put myself out there, if I don't give it a shot to say, what could this potentially be? I don't want to put a wall up so quickly. And I did that when I was younger. And I think that was a hindrance to me in a lot of ways, because I would just put the kibosh on so quickly and not allow anything to come. And so I try not to do that now. You know, I still haven't met my Bashir, but one day he will come into my life.
I mean,
But I want to give it more of an opportunity. I don't want to shut things down immediately. But one of the things that I do every year, and this has happened for like the last 9 years, I've been seeing a medium for many, many years. Well, yeah, 10 years now, actually. Um, and I trust what she says. I don't like live my life by it by any means, but my dad passed away. It'll be 10 years in March. And when I first saw her was the first time that it was before my dad was sick and he had lung cancer. He passed away exactly 2 months from the day that he was diagnosed. And she told me, because I'd asked her about my family, and I said, like, what's the relationship with my dad? And she said, just know that he loves you. He doesn't know how to show it. And that was my relationship with my dad to a T. But I was with him like as much as possible leading up to his passing. But the reason why I'm telling this story is because whatever she said, she's always been very true and accurate, but she never like really tells me anything bad. I don't live my life by it, but things that she said has happened. And so earlier this year, she told me, like, men are coming into my life right now and they're all going to want something from me, but keep putting myself out there. And then there's this other medium that I was introduced to, and she like reads things from objects. So she'll like something will come from her, she'll like find an object in her house and she'll like tell you why she picked up this object. So she picked up this Black Panther and she's like, all the guys that are coming into your life right now are Black Panthers. They all want something from you. And then she picked up this log that had all these small flowers on it and one big flower. She's like, you need to date all of these small flowers to get to your big flower, and he's going to be the guy. And then she picked up this crystal cat and she said, the person that you're going to end up being with is going to be like a crystal cat. He's going to come into your life. You're not going to realize that it's happening, but he's going to be the right person for you. And all of that's like in the back of my mind as I've been dating. I don't think about it every day, but like if I'm having a conversation like this, I might bring it up, because when I go back into like looking at my spreadsheet and like the conversations that I've been having, I realize that is what's been happening. Like the catfish itself, like that person wanted something from me. He was a Black Panther. The guy that I'm talking to in this very moment, I'm not quite sure yet if he's a Black Panther. I don't know that he's going to be my crystal cat, but like maybe, you never know. Um, but I need to give it a chance, because if I don't give it a chance, I'm just never going to know. There are some people right off the bat that I'm like, absolutely not. Like, this is not going to be a match. Like, I can tell from a few texts, and then like I can end that. But others, I'm like, okay, let's just keep giving this a chance and see. So I'm still hopeful that my crystal cat will come in and that big flower will actually happen.
oh, I hope that for you too.
Thank you.
And you'll have to keep us updated when it does. But
I'll let you know when it actually happens. So
I'll keep you guys updated too. Um, yeah, it's interesting. I never went to a medium. I guess like growing up, like orthodoxy like tells you not to believe in any of that stuff. I don't think I've shared this on the podcast at all, but I won't go into all the details, mostly because I don't remember them all. I did go and see a Miku Ball one time, which is a Kabbalist, where he kind of like what you were saying, where she just picked up random items. It's kind of like that, except for he
mm,
opens the book to random, like you open the book to a
mm,
random page and ask question, and then he interprets it. It was kind of freaky.
interesting.
I will never do it again. Um, I don't really remember what he told me, but whatever he told me in the moment helped with what I needed. So it's interesting. It's always an interesting experience. It's interesting to see if like stuff like
Yeah.
that comes true.
I'd love to try something like that, honestly, because I like trying it. Like again, I don't live my life by it by any means, but like the person I've been going to for like 10 years, things have happened that she said. It's not always exactly to a T. Like she told me that I was going to be working with a lot of women and that was going to be my next job after I'd quit my corporate job. And that's not necessarily the case, but I've joined different women's groups and I've been involved in women's groups where I wasn't as much before. And that's really what like the symbolism was between the correlation between the two of them. And that's led me to start my own business and different things that I have done over the last couple of years. So again, I just take it with a grain of salt, but things have happened.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes I come across also the TikTok tarot card readers and fortune tellers. I don't believe any of them. None of their stuff ever happens. But sometimes it's interesting. It's like, oh, he will reach out within 2 days. I'm like, oh, I don't know who he is, but I'll wait for him to
Yeah.
text me.
Yeah. I mean, they give like very generalist readings on like what is going on. Like the medium that I've been going to for many years, she pulls out tarot cards too, but I take notes on everything. Well, I have for like the last 8 years because I realized like, let me take these notes just to like go back and read them so I remember what it is. Um,
Yeah,
which is helpful. I also really like Reiki. I don't know if you've ever tried that before, but
no.
Reiki is energy healing and it doesn't seem like it would work, but it works really, really well for me in a lot of different ways. Like I had a situation, I had this like really bad pain in my left side for like a really, really long time. And the with Reiki, they have this philosophy that every person you meet, there's like a hook between you and them. So we're only meeting here now for, a couple hours, whatever. So our hook isn't very tight, right? But if I've known you for years and years and years, then the hook is going to be really tightly wound in you. So it's like this idea of, okay, let me take the hook out of this person. So there's a situation, took the hook out of this person and myself, and then that pain went away in my left side. And I had been to literally every single doctor in the world to be like, what is wrong? I had all different tests done and nobody could solve the problem. I went to Reiki and it went away. And I had another situation actually earlier this year where I had been bullied online for about 3 to 4 months. And I
Oh my
was in
gosh.
a lot of pain, a lot of back pain, like really bad back pain, like to the point where I was like laid out. And I was like, okay, let me try Reiki because I literally had tried everything at that point. I'd done acupuncture, I'd done chiropractor. I mean, I had done everything. And I did Reiki, and she's like, there's this giant, like, philosophical um, hook that's tied to a rope on my back. And so she did like this an imaginary chop of this rope, and the rope was like one of those multi-string ropes that you would use with a hook to like round a boat, so like something like really thick. She's like, every night when you go to sleep, just think about chopping this rope off. And I did that for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I mean, I ended up having a medical thing with my back, but it was not nearly as painful as it was before I did this like chopping of this rope off my back. Once I did that for just a couple of weeks, like thinking about getting rid of it, I could walk again. Like I didn't have problems like standing up, I could sit, like I was literally doing work laying on my stomach. Like I had to take my laptop
Oh
and lay
my
on the
gosh.
couch, and like it was so bad. And it was like night and day difference after I went to Reiki.
Wow. That's crazy that it like all of these mental or emotional things like physically manifest. And like by
Yeah,
clearing out, like clearing your energy, like makes them go away.
yeah, I've really leaned into like a lot of energy feeling and manifestation. And there's a really great website called the 10Q. And so, between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is a time of reflection. And so this site gives you, it's a Jewish site that gives you a question every day for 10 days from Rosh Hashanah through Yom Kippur to answer about reflection in your last year. And then at the end of the 10 days, you get sealed in the book of life. But they like call it like it goes into the vault. So you can't see for the year of the reflection, but I copy like all my answers over into a Google Doc so that I have them from year to year. I've been doing this for like 8 years. Absolutely love this site. And you answer then I think 3 questions of like, what do you want for your next year? Something like that, like at the end of the 10 days. And then they'll seal it. So I think they keep it open for like 3 or 4 days after. And you don't have to do it every day. So you could do it at any time, but you can only do it during Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, between the time of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. You can't do it at any other time of the year. And I went back because I'll go back every so often and read through what I wrote. And I've written many times, like I'm manifesting my husband, like this is what I want him to be like. This is what it's going, like I want to just be dating more. That's what I said last year during Rosh Hashanah, between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so crazy. This is actually coming to life this year. So I keep leaning into it because when I put it into the world of like, this is what I want, things are like actually manifesting. They're actually happening.
Wow. Yeah, I tried manifesting. It hasn't worked yet, but
It takes time.
yeah. Yeah, but it's interesting. Maybe I'll take a look because you guys will not be listening to this between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, but we are recording this in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So it is interesting. Maybe I'll take a look at the 10Q, which is also a little triggering for me as an accountant because our quarterly reports are called 10Qs. But which I'm currently working on our Q3 10Q. But it is a good way for me to remember what it is. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. So I'll
Because
send you that link so you have it, and
okay,
and
awesome.
and people can save it for next year. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll post it in the episode description and you guys can take a look at it next year for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur 2025. But
Yes.
but yeah, but I'm gonna try to look at it for 2024. And maybe I'll manifest some good stuff for 2025 or for
Yeah.
whatever year
Check
Jew
it
I
out.
forget what Jewish year we are. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. Yeah, I don't know.
5785, I think.
5785. It makes sense.
Yeah.
I know it's something 85 because one of the Jewish groups did a parody of 1985, the song.
Okay.
So,
That's funny.
but yeah. But yeah, I tried to manifest probably at the beginning of the summer. I like had a bunch of things that I wanted to manifest and I was good about it for a little while and then I'm just a cynical person, so it didn't really work. And everything that I tried to manifest just reacts to me with emoji reactions, not actual text messages. But it's okay. It's fine. But I will say emoji reactions are not answers to texts. Like that's not how you answer
They're
text.
not. And neither are emojis in your profile to say who you are as a person, to just have emojis. Like, don't do that.
Yeah.
I
I
came
would
across a
honestly,
profile.
I
I
would
came
rather,
across a profile a couple weeks ago that was
yeah.
literally just a list of emojis. I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, That's
Yeah, what the
crazy.
heck? Okay, emojis are like fine to use when you just want to seem a little friendly, or like the only time I use emojis instead of words is when I Venmo people. Like, I don't need to
100%.
write brunch. I could put the egg emoji. Like, I don't need to write dinner. I could just put the pasta emoji. Like, it doesn't have to be that deep, but that's the only time emojis count. And honestly, I would rather be ghosted than someone just respond to me with an emoji reaction. Like, unless it's like, oh yeah, dinner is called for this time. Then you can send me a little heart, not a thumbs up. Thumbs up are what's the word I'm looking for? Thumbs up are passive aggressive and dismissive. I don't like the thumbs up. The thumbs up is literally just saying F you, and I stand by that. But
Yeah.
send me a little heart when I like tell you details of like somewhere where like the time and place of to be, whatever. But if I'm sending like a real text message, especially if they haven't talked in a while and like I thought of you to send it, I don't care if you hate me as a person. Well, actually, if you hate me as a person, that's a good way to show it. But like, if we're even friends in the slightest, like, at least give me an LOL. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something I won't say all the details, but I texted somebody who I hadn't talked to in a while. Um, and I'm not going to go into so many details, but I texted them something, and all I got was an emoji reaction, and it was something thoughtful. It was something came up, it reminded me of them. I sent it to them, and I was like, "Oh, do you remember this?" And I just got an emoji reaction. So they're dead to me now.
Yeah.
Dead to me. We've moved on.
I mean, you
That's
should
how you
always
close a
follow up with an
loop.
emoji. Yeah.
No, I can't even follow up with an emoji because they didn't even like
No,
send an
not you
emoji.
following up with emoji reaction. They should send an emoji reaction and a follow-up. Like you can do an emoji
Yeah,
reaction and then also don't just send an emoji
emoji
reaction.
emoji reactions are okay for follow-up, but not as an answer. So they're dead to me now and the loop is closed. So I never have to see them ever
Thank
again. And if I
God.
do see them ever again, I will be cold because I'm like, oh yeah, you sent me an emoji reaction. We're not friends. We're
Totally.
nothing. We're enemies now. Not even enemies because I don't care enough to
Yeah,
be enemies. And if it isn't love, it isn't hate, it's just indifference. But
there you go.
okay,
All good.
Rachel, before we wrap up the episode, do you have any other stories or anything else you want to share?
I mean, I guess one of the other things that I realized through this process too is learning about what is really important to me and how much emotional intelligence really is. And I'll just tell maybe one or multiple stories around
Yeah,
this
no, as many as
topic.
you want.
So I met
I
this
love hearing your
guy.
stories.
Thank you. I met this guy. He was the first guy that I actually started dating after October 7th, and it was the end of November. And we had a really great time. We had been talking for multiple times. It was more of like a situationship than dating. I was totally fine with it. And I ended up going over his house. It was around Purim, and I had been making hamantash. And I said, "Do you want me to bring any hamantash in? Like, what flavors do you like?" I did like apricot, raspberry, and then I tried doing a s'more hamantaschen, which actually came
Ooh.
out really, really good. So highly recommend it when Purim comes. Who knows when this episode comes out or when you're going to listen to it, but I'm giving you
Around
lots of
Purim
tips for
time.
different holidays. So try s'mores hamantaschen. Anyway, brought him some hamantaschen. We had FaceTime before I went. He lives in Queens. I don't know why I can't date many men in Brooklyn. There are Jewish men in Brooklyn, but
We're
why,
all in
where are you?
Queens.
Come out.
All of the guys from your stories
Why
are
are
Queens guys.
Queen? I mean, I have a few Brooklyn stories too, actually, which we might get to. So anyway, he's in Queens and he was like, "Let me send you an Uber." And I was like, fantastic. Like if you're sending me an Uber, and I already know the person, so I'm not like giving a random person my address. Um, Sends me an Uber, ends up being a Tesla SUV. So it took a while to come. And I was like, "Oh wow, you're sending me a Tesla SUV. Like that's cool." Get to his house. I don't know, from the time that we had FaceTime to the time that I got there, he was so up. He couldn't even have a conversation. He like devoured my Hamantaschen. Fine. Like I wasn't expecting to eat any, like I had Hamantaschen at home. And he has a dog and his dog is amazing. Like actually, I love his dog more than him. And so hanging out with his dog, whatever, time to leave. Didn't even like recognize me as I'm like leaving. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna, so I called an Uber to go home. Didn't hear from him again. This was in March-ish. About, I guess it was like 3 or 4 weeks ago now, he texted me, hey, do you want to hang out again? And I like didn't respond to him. It was on a Sunday night and I had a really busy Monday. Monday, he rapid fire texted me the entire day from like 9 a.m. to about 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. He rapid fire texted me. I had a busy day. I was giving a workshop later at night. And so I didn't get home until late. And I saw his messages coming through, but I was busy. I'm not stopping my day to like message you back. He's having this whole conversation with himself. And then I came up with a very thoughtful message back to him, like, basically, absolutely not. I don't want to hang out with you again. Like his back was really bad. He had hurt it, whatever. And I'm like, I'm glad your back is better, but the way that you treated me was completely disrespectful. And I have more respect for myself, and I do not want to hang out with you again. And his response to me was something along the lines of, it wasn't you. I was in the worst pain of my life. Something, I don't remember, but I didn't respond back to him. I didn't talk to him, but it was obvious that he had no concern about me or respecting me or anything. And I was like, never again. Like, I'm not putting myself in that situation again. There was another
Also,
guy
it
who,
was 6 months.
yeah, like literally
Like
6 months I hadn't heard from him.
if he wanted to
Yeah.
apologize about that, he could have texted you the next day. Like,
And he never even apologized in the whole text. Not
no, that's the
once did he
worst
say, I'm
part.
sorry. Not even anything around that at all. There's another guy who's actually the guy that I talked to like right after this guy, and he knew what I did for work, and he's like, I'm looking for a new job. Like, can you look at my resume? I was like, I don't do that. Like, that's not what I do, but I have a list of people that help with resume writing because I always refer people when people look for that because I always want to have like partners for things that I don't do. And so I gave him the list of those. He's like, I don't want to pay for it. I was like, well, I'm not doing it for you. Um, and first time we hung out, I was like, hey, great hanging out with you. Gave me a thumbs up emoji reaction, not even just a thumbs
I
up
just rolled my
emoji.
eyes.
Exactly. Back to the
You
emoji
guys can't see,
reaction.
but the
Didn't
emoji
hear from him
reaction.
again, completely ghosted me. He comes back like a couple months later, where this is like March now. And that's when my back was like at its worst. I'm like, oh, my back is really bad. And he had he connected with me on LinkedIn. Fine, I don't care. Like if you connect with me on LinkedIn, like I have a decent LinkedIn following. So like it's not that big of a deal to me per se, because that's where I do like a lot of my posting and my work or whatever. He unconnected with me from LinkedIn, then decides to connect back with me on LinkedIn, again, asking me to help him with his resume. He's applied to 200 jobs. Can I help him? I'm like, no, I'm
Audacity.
not helping. And then starts in a LinkedIn DM asking me if I want to hang out with him again. I'm like, I'm not having this conversation with you on LinkedIn. Like, if you want to talk to me, you can text me on my number. Oh, I deleted your number. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I don't need to be talking to you. Like, no, I don't need this. Like, like, there's no emotional intelligence. Everything is about you. Like, the narcissism to even like think that I would just give you a handout. Like, you want me to help you, this is what the cost is going to be. And the cost is going to be a dollar amount because I need to pay my bills. Like, I'm not here to like go on a date with you to help you. Like, that's not helping me, that's helping you only. And like, it's just not okay. Like, whatever anyone does for work, you don't lean onto that. There's another guy that
Oh, wait. Also,
um
real quick, I will admit to having done that to random guys. But like not for
like
real.
while you're dating them or like about to go on a date with them.
Um, really in only one comes to mind, like one actual one. It was just a guy I matched with on JSwipe, and he was a real estate lawyer. And one of my friends was trying to buy an apartment and she was having issues with it. So I was like, hey, I just matched with a real estate lawyer on JSwipe. Should I ask him your questions? So I did, and he answered. He was like, he was very clear. He's like, this isn't legal advice. He's like, I was just answering a question. Um, I think
Yeah.
he ghosted me though. So I don't feel that bad. I would have gone on a date with him. I would have like, did I
I mean, I
swipe
think
yes?
it's
Because
okay if it's like,
I might have
if
swiped
it's just a
yes only because
question,
he
like
was a
you're
real estate
inquiring.
lawyer,
Yeah.
but he also could have said no. But yeah, I haven't.
Right.
I would have like gone out with him. Also, it was for my friend. It wasn't really for me. I would have gone out with him and not talked about real estate law and like actually gotten to know him as a person. But I'm pretty sure he ghosted me. And then I think I had another real estate law question, so I hit him up again like 2 years later. But he ignored my text. I like found
Yeah.
our chat because it was over text message at that point. And I sent
Yeah.
it. I did. I have no shame. I needed legal help. Not actually help. I just needed like I had a question. And I'm like, oh, who do I know that is a New York City real estate lawyer? Oh, this random guy that I
Oh,
talked to on JSwipe 2 years ago. But he never answered my text. So it's okay. But he ghosted me, so I don't feel that bad.
and I think it's fine. Like, if someone asks me a question, I'm not gonna not answer it. But if you want me to like do work for you that like like I charge people for, you're going to get a bill. Like, I'm not doing that for free. Unless we're actually in a relationship, maybe. But like other than that, I'm not doing work for free. Like, it's not happening.
No, I
I
agree.
went on a date, I went on a date with another guy. And the one thing I didn't mention too, like I've been dating men from like anywhere from like 32 to 45 or 46, I think. Most of them have been younger than me lately. For whatever reason, men that are my age or older than me don't want to date my age, but men that are younger than me want to date my age, which is fine.
I like
Um,
younger guys.
but this, you like younger guys. This guy was older than me. He lived in Connecticut, like deeper in Connecticut, not like Greenwich, Stamford area. And he was Israeli, and we had talked on the phone. And then he went to Israel for a couple of weeks because his niece was getting bat mitzvahed, and then he was going to come back. So we planned to meet in person, like later in the month. Um, when he was back, he's like, I'll come to New York. I was like, wow, if you're going to come to New York City, like, absolutely, I'll go out with you. And funny story, that's how my parents met. And I can tell that story in a second as well. But he came to New York. We went to a bar. He chose the bar. He ordered sparkling water at the bar. I was like, why did we go to a bar? Like, if you're only going to drink sparkling water, like you could have literally picked any place in all of New York City. You choose this bar to get sparkling water. Anyway, it was fine. Like, we had things in common, but there was no like attraction. I didn't hear from him after the date. Every time I go on a date, whether I like it or not, I generally will say, thank you, I had a really good time. Or if I don't say good time, I just say like, thanks for the date, something like that. Just because, especially like, I just want to be kind. Like, I'm just a kind person generally. Unless it's like really bad. And I wasn't like, I've gone on a second date with him if he like initiated a second date. I didn't hear from him for like a week. Then he texts me, and he does data science, but he works for a company that produces cookbooks. So he's involved with a lot of like hospitality related things, and that was the work that I do. And he messages me, and he's like, "Do you know any pastry chefs that would want to run a kitchen in Seattle?" And I used to live in Seattle at one point, and I was like, no, sorry, I don't know anybody. And then I never heard from him again. Why are you asking me to help you find a pastry chef? And you literally said nothing else, like nothing about the date, nothing I want to see you again, or I don't want to see you again. Hey, can you help me out and find me a pastry chef in Seattle, Washington? Like, I could. Am I going to? 1000% no. Absolutely not.
No, no,
Yeah.
that's so weird.
Yeah. And it's crazy because his name is my dad's Hebrew name. And so every once in a while, I feel like my dad's sending, like putting people in front of me. Like the guy in Colorado had a very similar job to what my dad did. I was like, he's probably putting some guy in front of me again. Like I just keep feeling like that's like what's happening. My parents met in the Catskills during Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And my parents actually have the same last name, but spelled differently. And
That's so
they were
funny.
sitting on the same couch. Well, my dad wasn't there. The Yontif was over. He went back home to go to work. And my mom was still there with her family, and my dad's family, like his parents were there. They overheard each other talking, and my dad's father was like, "Oh, is your last name this?" And they said, "Yeah, that's our last name too." So my mom thought that she was around the same age as my dad. She's a few years younger, but he was like, "Are you single?" My mom was at the time. And she was like, "Well, my son is single too. Would you be interested in dating him?" My mom was like, "Okay, sure." She was living in New York City at the time. My dad was living in upstate New York. She's like, "If some guy's going to come all the way from upstate New York to take me on a date in New York City, like, sure, I'll go." Mind you, this is the only time my dad came to New York City was to date my mom for like a year, and then they got married. He only came
Wow.
one other time, was when my sister graduated from grad school at Columbia. I don't think he ever came to New York City ever again, but they did it for a year and then they got married, and that's how they met each other. So I was like, if some guy's gonna come all the way from Connecticut to take me on a date, then I'm gonna go on that date, because you just never know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
But then he ended up being rude and just wanted. It is interesting, like you've told a couple stories now, and I am seeing the theme of guys who just want something from you.
exactly. And that just like just keeps coming up over and over again, is like, so I need to find a guy. So if there's anyone out there that doesn't want something from me other than being in a relationship, promise. I am a very good person. I am very giving, but I'm tired of feeling like I'm getting taken for more than what I'm getting back. Like I want to be in a relationship with someone that cares about me and wants to take care of me too, because I take care of myself and so many others in my day to day. Like, and what I've done, like, this is really what I want. And I want to be in a relationship where we can be partners, but I can do things that I like doing and you could do things that you like doing, but we can also do things together. I don't want to like be in a hovering relationship by any means, but I also don't want to be taken advantage of.
Yeah, for sure. I feel the same way. Not that guys ask me for like random professional help. Sometimes they ask me tax questions, and I'm like, I don't do taxes. I can't help you. But or like their opener will literally be like, okay, on all my dating profiles, one of my old roommates came up with this joke. It's like, um, I'm an accountant who can't do your taxes, but maybe next year we could file jointly. So I
That's
have that
cute.
on
I
pretty
like
much all
that.
my dating profiles because it's cute. But still, guys will text
Yeah.
me about taxes, and I'm like, I don't do taxes. I'm an accountant, but I don't do taxes. I can't answer your tax questions. I'm not going to do your tax return. I use TurboTax for my own return, or my dad does it. Like no. But I will
Well, the
ask.
thing is that I learned too,
Yeah.
people don't read, like whatever's in your profile, like they don't read. That's why when I message someone first, like I try to find something within their profile that I can pull out to message them about. If not, then I talk about something that I like. Like one of my go-to questions is, hey, whatever their name is, if you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you go? Um, because I love to travel. I've been to 28 countries. I try to go to a different country every year. And I want to know where they want to travel to. And how do they like to travel? Because that's a big thing for me too. Like if you're a cruise person and a Disney adult, we do not match. If you like to go to different cities and learn about different cultures and you're about seeing the world, then we're a match. But that's how I weed people out too. Like you start talking about cruises, we're done. Like I'm not going on a cruise with you. Sorry.
My weed out question is how they feel about Taylor Swift. And if they're a Taylor hater, that's a red flag personality trait. Don't have to be Swifty as long as they're respectful. But that's my weed out question.
Yeah.
If a guy like is a Taylor hater, he's gone. No more. I
Yeah.
actually talked to a guy,
But that's an important,
yeah.
Well, that's an important thing to you, right? Like knowing where that balance lies, like what are you willing to take or not take? Because I think one of the things that we, whether you're men or women, but what we do is we like put people on this pedestal where we think we need to find like this unicorn of a person, which doesn't exist. But what are the things that are like an absolute no-go? What are the things that are like, yes, absolutely I have to like, I love it if they do this. And what are the things that we can compromise on? And once I realized where my compromise piece was, that's also been really helpful of like, okay, like for example, I really don't want to date a smoker. My dad died of lung cancer. He hadn't smoked in 40 years, but that is something that's really important to me because I don't want to be with someone that is also going to get that disease or something is going to happen. And I hate the smell of smoke. So like,
Mhm.
that's a no go for me. Like if you smoke, sorry, like we're not going to date. Like it just isn't going to happen. So it's like
Yeah.
finding those things that like, yes, possibly that you can compromise on or absolutely not.
Yeah. And again, there are things that are way more important than Taylor Swift when it comes to finding a partner,
Yeah.
but that's just like what I ask. It also just tells me a lot about a person. Um, because I just think someone who has so much hatred for something or someone who's so popular, it's really telling about their personality. So like I've definitely talked to guys who are like, "Oh, mad respect for her. I know a couple of her songs. I don't really enjoy her music." Like that's so different than being like, "Oh, she's so overrated and she's all over the NFL and TV and it's ruining football." Like that's telling of who you are as a person and how you would see my interests. Cause like a guy could ask me
Yeah.
about sports and I could just be like, "Oh, I hate all sports." Which is true. Or I could just be like, "Oh, I don't really enjoy it, but like we can get two TVs." Like I don't see that as a red flag answer. Like it's okay. We're allowed to have things that we don't both love. Like I don't need a guy who's going to go to a Taylor Swift concert with me. I have a lot of friends for that. He just has to stay
Yeah.
home with the kids for it. Like that's fine. Let me go.
Yeah. Like
Let me spend my money on it.
absolutely. And it's about like the things that you really enjoy that they appreciate that you enjoy that thing, right? And the same thing for you. Like, what do they enjoy? Like, can you appreciate what they enjoy, the things that they're passionate about? Like for me, I'm a huge New York Mets fan. My dad was a New York Mets fan. I'm one of three girls. He made us all New York Mets fans. So like we still watch all the games. So I tend to connect with a lot of guys that are sports fans because I do like sports, certain sports. But if that's the only thing that's in the conversation, like I can't keep talking to you. Like there was another guy actually in Colorado that I had matched with, talked to him for like 3 weeks. He kept pushing off even having a phone conversation. So we were just texting. He was originally from Long Island, but lived in Colorado now. So like New York sports, he was still a sports fan of different things. And um, finally talked on the phone with him, and his voice to me was like nails on a chalkboard. And that's one of the other things. Like I have to like your voice. If I cannot listen to you, then I am not going to date you, which is one of the reasons why I like getting on a phone call first or like hearing their voice. Or if they like the guy that I'm talking to right now, he sent me a voice note the first time and I was like, most people don't do that, but like I actually really liked his voice. And I was like, okay, you sent me a voice note. I like your voice. Like we can continue the conversation. Um, but if I don't get if I don't like your voice, like it's an end. Like you have to listen to that person for however long. Like if I can't listen to you, then absolutely not dating you.
Yeah, I agree. I try to listen because sometimes you could tell if there's something off about them from their voice. Also, I like on Hinge when they have, I always listen to the
The voice prompts.
if they have a voice prompt. I put a voice prompt on mine just like I think I picked a really dumb thing and like whatever I said about it was so dumb. It was just like a thought, but it's just to show guys that I'm funny and I have a cute voice and like they should want to listen to me talk. But they could also listen to the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I
But
think voice matters a lot. Like we don't realize how there are like different qualities that we all have. that affect how we like somebody. It's not always their physical look or appearance. Like, yes, that will matter, but that's also something that can grow over time.
Mhm.
But if you don't like their voice, you don't like how they eat their food, like quinoa on a fork, or wiping a fork every time you take a bite, those are habits that like, I don't think that
Was
I can live with, right?
germs?
I have no
Was it a
idea. I never had another conversation with him and I didn't ask him about it because I was so taken back in that situation
I
that
would have
I
been
was like,
like, what are you doing?
I was very taken back. I
Like,
think I
I
might
don't
have
like,
even the bartender too, which makes it even more awkward when I know so many people.
that's
I
so
don't I try
weird.
not to go to as many places now that like I know people, at least for a first date. If it's a second or third date, then maybe, but because I know a lot of people in the restaurant industry just because I've been in the restaurant industry for so long, but yeah, it was
I want to
rough.
know why he wiped his fork. If that ever happened to me, I would ask because I would be like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Like, that's
It
so
was
weird.
so weird. So, so, so
Even if he
weird.
was eating from the same dish.
It was when he went from one dish to another dish. So like, let's just say he was having mushrooms and he went to tomatoes, like he would wipe it between eating the mushrooms and then going for the tomato, like, and then eating the tomatoes on his plate. Like he wouldn't
So
combine
weird.
anything. I
Oh,
mean,
so
maybe he
maybe it
had
was
a
an
food
OCD
issue,
thing.
probably. Like I would assume, because a lot of kids that like don't like to mix their food, he probably still had that as like an adult, or like, oh, the things on my plate can't touch, I can't mix anything. Uh, it just when it comes to food, it's really hard for me to be like, this is something that um that I'm okay with. So the other one other lesson actually before I forget that I did learn during this time too is if you click with someone right away, don't go too fast because it's okay to take things slow. So like for example, I matched with this guy, it was like we clicked like so quickly and we literally talked like nonstop between FaceTimes, phone calls, texting for like a week leading up to our first date where he's like, let's go for drinks. He picked this place. I had been there before. I'm a huge fan of like great cocktail bars. I try to go like to the world's 50 best cocktail bars when I'm traveling. Actually, I haven't been to as many in New York that are on the world's 50 best, but I go to like nice cocktail bars in the city. I love cocktail bars. So he chose a place he had never been. I had been before, but I was like, I love this place. Let's go. And then we went there, had a fantastic time. And before we went, I was like, why don't we do dinner too? Because I already know we're like gonna have a good time with drinks. Like we had like this great bond. Let's go and have dinner. We go and have dinner. This is in the middle of winter, and I think it had snowed that day. And so I
Oh
just knew
no.
the trains were gonna take a really long time. He lived on the Upper West, so not in Queens, Upper West. And um, he's like, let me get you an Uber if you want. I was like, I'm not sure. And then I was like, I'm gonna just take you up on it. So he like got me an Uber to go to the cocktail bar. We walked to the restaurant because it wasn't that far. And then he sent me home in an Uber and he paid for everything. So like all in all, before that whole date was like had to been close to $400. And I'm not like counting money like at all, but like the fact that he was just into wanting to have a converse, like go through this whole date. And we liked a lot of the same things. And from a food perspective as well, he kept more kosher than I did. But and I was okay with that as well, but he ate dairy out. And so we just got like dairy fish stuff at the restaurant. And he sent me home with all the leftovers because he wouldn't bring anything into his house. So I had like had all the leftovers as well, which was really nice. And then it just got very intense very quickly. Something that I said he didn't like, he's like, I can't talk about this topic. Like, we need to break up. I was like, okay. Then he comes back like 3 months later and he was like, actually, it wasn't this topic that bothered me. It was this other topic that bothered me. And, um, I realized that it really wasn't that big of a deal after I talked to somebody else about it. Do you want to hang out again? And I said, so I really like this guy. I was like, yeah, absolutely. I'll give you a second chance. Again, with the emotional intelligence, it just really wasn't there. And then, so we go to hang out a second time, or we plan to. Again, it's when my back was really bad. And I was going to an acupuncturist at the time, and she was like, you need to cancel everything. It was a week that she was like, you need to cancel everything. Do not leave the house unless you're going to the doctor. If you're going to physical therapy or you're coming to see me, that's it. Like, do not go anywhere. You need to rest your back. And I had like a lot of stuff planned that week, and I had to cancel with him, and I had to cancel with a friend, and I had to like cancel a whole bunch of stuff. And I was like, we can reschedule it when I'm better. I don't remember what. Oh, then I didn't like, then he never like responded to me, like never texted me. We weren't having any more conversation. I was like, do you want to reschedule this? And he was like, I think he was still silent. And I basically was like, okay, well, if you can't like commit to anything, you don't want to have a conversation, then I think we just need to end this. And so we did, but it was very clear that his emotional intelligence was like next to nothing. And this was actually before I talked to the medium. And I mentioned him, like the first time was before I talked to the medium. And I mentioned him to her, and she was like, he was a soulmate in a past life that came rushing back in. And that's why that bond was so strong. And that's why it was so intense. And it was hard for me to like not attach to this person so quickly because there was some sort of past connection there, which is
That's
also
so
crazy to kind of think
interesting.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
But I felt it, and like he felt it. Like we both were like, the way that this connection came in, it was like the strongest bond I've ever felt with anybody in my entire life. Like any friend, any family, like no, but I had never felt a stronger connection with a person than this person. But she was like, he's not your
Wow.
person. Don't worry about it. He's not your person.
Wow.
Yeah. But it got me to realize like all these stories, and I know that I've told, I don't even know how many stories that I've told today, but like all these stories are just like opportunities for me to see like the lesson that I've learned. Again, sharing the lesson with other people. Like maybe you see yourself in the stories that I'm telling, or you've been through, and there's some of the things that we've talked about. You're like, oh yeah, that resonates with me. And my hope is that my stories resonate with other people too. So either they've been in that situation, or as me, or as the other person, or both. And like, oh, wait a second, let me take a step back. How can I like be better at this the next time? And that's what I just am really trying to impress upon myself is like, okay, I went on a date with this person. It didn't go well. What did I learn from this? How can I make it better for the next time? And how can I just keep growing in dating until I find that right person for me?
Wow. Yeah, it's really good lessons
Yeah,
to
thank
learn.
you.
Okay, so Rachel, before we move to the closing segment, is there anything else you would like to share?
I, I think I hit on a lot of stuff. I mean, the only other thing that I've been focusing on is like how like I feel like your dating profile doesn't matter as much, but people also tend to swipe left so quickly and because of something. And I wish I knew like what is the reason why you're swiping left. Like you don't like there isn't a reason why, or like, oh, I just don't, it's the attraction, or there's like something that you say in your profile. Um, but yeah, I mean that's like sometimes annoying is like you're going through and you're spending so much time swiping, and then you like match with somebody and you're like, why did you even match with me? Like we don't have anything in common. Um, but then you just never know who you're going to match with. And maybe that's, that is your person as well. So like give it, give it a shot because you just never know what will happen. But I just thought of one more story that's actually a really good story.
Okay.
Um, So I matched with this guy and he didn't have his height on his profile. And so I asked him in like text before we met, it's like, oh, how tall are you? So I'm 5'6". And so I'll date anybody that is around my height. So if they're 5'5", like it's not the end of the world to me. But if they're less than 5'5", then I don't want to be taller than you. I just don't. If they're 5'7", it's fine. 5'8", like you don't have to be 6 feet tall for me to date you. We meet, he's maybe 5'1", maybe
Oh my
5'1".
gosh.
I'm 5'6". That's a almost 6 inches difference. Like that's like so small. And like I feel bad for the guy because he obviously has a self-consciousness about his height. That's why it's not his profile. But don't lie to me. Like if he would have told me that he was 5'1", I still would have gone out with him. It wouldn't have been a no because we had really good conversation. Like I really enjoyed speaking with him. But because you lied to me, I was like, I'm not going to date you. And then I try to also ask, and I never know when the right time or when it's appropriate, like depending upon what the site is, to ask for someone's last name. Like I always just want to know who they truly are and what their last name is. And he's like, oh, I'll give it to you when we meet in person. And that was like another red flag for me. Like, don't, like, if you're not going to give me your last name, like,
Like, it's not that
that's
deep.
like not, huh?
It's not that deep.
No, it's not. Like, just
Like,
tell me what your last name is.
I always tell a guy, I'm like, can you give me your last name so I could internet stalk you? Usually a guy will
Yeah.
ask me first. Because I could
Oh,
find the guy
interesting.
without his last name, Loki. Um,
Yeah.
but he asked me, he's like, oh, I want to put it in my phone. And I was like, sure, have fun internet stalking me. But
Yeah.
then I ask a guy for usually I just like do a general like Google search, make sure there's no arrests out, Facebook
Exactly.
search. See if we have mutual friends on Facebook, a lot of the time my search will stop there. Like, 'cause if we have mutual friends, I'm like, okay, someone will hold you accountable for murdering me. So I feel safe enough
Well, I feel like that
meeting.
probably like you're dating more people like in the community that you're in, and I'm not. Like I don't have a ton of Jewish friends per se. Like I'm not involved in a lot of Jewish community related things. So when I'm meeting someone, I'm like meeting them for the first time, and the chances of us
Yeah.
having a connection are like very few and far
I mean,
between.
it's yes and no. I have gone out with guys who aren't as much a part of the I've definitely gone out with guys like who are part of the community and we have multiple mutual friends. Um, but I've also gone out with guys who aren't as much a part, but
Okay.
I would say 85 to 90% of the time we have at least one mutual Facebook friend,
Okay.
but not
Yeah.
always.
And I'm not
That's
really active on Facebook. Like it's there because I've had it. I mean, Facebook came out when I was a sophomore in college, I think. So I've had it for a very, very long time. Um,
Mhm.
but it's just not something that I use so much today.
Yeah, I
My
mean, I
mom does.
mostly use it kind of like what it's intended, like social network. Like I don't post on
Yeah.
Facebook, but if I meet someone, like let's say I meet someone at a Shabbat meal, I don't carry my phone around, so I'm not gonna get their phone number. So it's a way to connect with people.
Right.
And then in turn, if I need to contact somebody, I could just send them a message on Facebook. Like if I want to invite someone
Yeah.
to a Shabbat meal, or if I need, I don't know, just random people I know from random places. Again, it's like it's a social network. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I use Instagram for like my actual social media. But
And I
but
generally
yeah,
connect with people on LinkedIn because that's where I do most of my posting and connections and stuff like that. Because I always feel like you never know how you're connected. I mean, not people that I'm dating generally, although I have,
yeah,
um, which is actually funny because there are like 3 or 4 guys that I dated that I've been connected to on LinkedIn, especially when I start dating them. And in part of the work that I do now, I do a free webinar once a month. And my process is to DM everybody in my LinkedIn connections to like let them know that I'm doing it. I ended up reaching out to 2 exes. One that I dated in my early 20s, like I was fresh out of college. We had a full-blown conversation. He's married with a kid, but like we're friends on Facebook or friends on Instagram. Like he's always still there. His wife's name is actually Rachel too, which is odd. Um, and I also, my dad's side of the family is from Lithuania, and I was looking at trying to get my dual citizenship in Lithuania, still trying to work on that. If anybody knows the consulate in the US to Lithuania, I need help. I keep asking people, but I went back to a rabbi from my childhood to ask for help who worked with the Lithuanian consul, but having challenges. But anyway, I was actually in a Facebook group that like a Jewish Facebook group that like helps people to like connect back um your heritage. Like there's a site like jewishgenealogy.com or something, which is actually really cool. If you have ancestors that came over, you can find exactly how they came over and their passports and like all this stuff. And that's like what started my search, which is amazing. He happened to be in that group and like commented on my post. He's like, "Oh my God, I'm a Lithuanian Jew too." I was like, I never knew that, but okay. Just very random. And another guy that I had dated, it's actually during first guy I dated post COVID. Um, and we had connected on LinkedIn, and he's a CEO of a company. And I asked him, and he was super cordial. And he was just like, "Hey, I'm, really busy with my company right now. Like I can't attend your webinar." And like, that was it. Like I wasn't expecting anything else. But it was nice that they both like responded back, to me. So
Yeah, I would have skipped them.
you just, you just never know how, like when you're going to need somebody or like how they can help.
Yeah, I have a collection of boys that I call them. I always said that if I read a memoir one day, it's going to be called To All the Boys Who Watch My Stories. Because all these guys, all these guys that I've dated and or talked to, um, like just follow me on Instagram, and I don't always follow back. I don't like doing the social media follow unless we're actually like dating.
Right.
But I have a whole collection of them. Some of them I did follow back, and then I unfollowed them once things ended, but they still follow me, and they will all forever still watch my stories. So, to all the boys who watch my stories, there used to be
That's a good
more,
one.
I think. I think some of them did unfollow me. I don't know. I had one summer where there were so many random boys who I talked to or dated who just watched my stories all the time, and I could like count them. There were like over 10. Probably probably between 15 to 20 of them. And I'm like, why? Why do you care? Like even ones who
Yeah. I
have
mean, that's
ghosted me.
when,
Like, why do
yeah,
you
that's
watch
when
my
it's like, okay,
stories?
it's time to block you. Like, I don't need you in my life anymore. Like, if you're stalker-esque, it's just not a
Yeah.
thing.
But like they don't say anything, they just watch. I was like, okay, good to know
Exactly.
you still watch my stories. Okay.
Exactly.
Enjoy. I'm funny, so
They just want the entertainment. They don't want anything else.
yeah, like I don't blame them, but still. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so any other stories that you wanted to share?
Think, think I'm good. I think I don't even know how many stories. I want to see the transcript after this to be like, okay, what are all the stories that I told? Because I feel like I told so many.
Okay. Okay, so let's move on to our closing segment. So,
Awesome.
okay, I know we've been saying little tidbits of advice throughout the episode, but Rachel, can you give me and my listeners one piece of dating advice?
I would say one thing that's really important is to just know who you are first. And I know people say that all the time, but what do you truly want with a partner? And not say what are you bringing to the table, because everybody has something to bring, but what are your like absolute no's? What are your absolute, I have to have this, and where can you compromise? And that compromise list really should be bigger than your no's and your yeses, because that's really what relationships is about, is communication, and you need to be able to compromise. So if you're too far in one way or another, it's going to be tough.
I like that. It's a good piece of advice.
Thank
And
you.
then last but not least, Rachel, what is your tagline?
Okay, so this was kind of hard to put together, but this is what I'm going to use. So hopefully
Okay.
it resonates based upon what I've talked about today. But I'm looking for love, but don't mistake my kindness for weakness. Respect is the only match I'm swiping right on.
I like that. That's a really good one. I could see
Thank you.
that actually being in the Real Housewives.
So Real Housewives out there, if you want to do a Jewish dating edition, let's do it.
I'll join it. I want to be on it. Um,
Yeah, we need to pitch it to Andy Cohen. Might actually do it.
yeah.
You never know.
Where's Andy Cohen? Andy Cohen. If only Andy Cohen listened to my podcast. Yeah, the real
He
singles of
should.
New
He
York
should
City.
listen. There you
The real
go.
Jewish singles of New York City. I'll think of a better name.
That would actually be a
But
really good reality show.
yeah, that actually was what I was gonna call my podcast at some point, like in the early workshopping days of the title.
Yeah.
It was gonna be like the real singles of it started out the real singles of a specific neighborhood in New York City, but we decided it was too specific and I wanted to have more like allow for a more general population to be part of the podcast. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, Andy
That makes
Cohen,
sense.
we're interested. So, Rachel,
Let's
thank
do
you
it.
so, so much for coming on. This was so fun. And
I-
I'm sure if you do publish your book, I'm sure everyone who listens to this episode is going to read it,
Awesome. Yeah.
or at least I will.
Keep me posted. If there's comments in the podcast episode, like comment, tell me that you want the book. That'll be good. Yeah. To push me
Yeah,
forward a little bit more to be like,
yeah,
okay,
Shticky
let me do
Situation
this.
Nation. Let's encourage Rachel to publish the book. But
Yeah.
but yeah, but yeah, thank you again so, so much. This was a lot of fun. And Shticky Situation Nation, you'll catch me next time. Bye, everybody.